Do consulting specialise in writing maintenance standards and would like to share common misunderstandings of these documents? Maintenance standards are critical and are at the heart of a utility's quality management systems, however, are often overlooked and not managed well. To get a perspective of what we're talking about, let's consider an analogy of a head office that isn't managed well. This head office has 400 employees, and the cost of employing the staff and running the office is $50 million annually. However, the building is leaking, has fire hazards, and the elevators, internet, and phones are not always working. In this case, you'd expect that there will be a riot across the company, and the CEO demands that this is fixed immediately. And let's be honest, some people would get fired as a result. Now let's consider a similar situation with maintenance standards that set the requirements for $50 million of annual maintenance work. The requirements are not clear or practical, and there are so many standards it's hard to know which one to refer to when. This leads to poor work practices, masses of queries on a daily basis, and change control that is unbearable, all of which is burning profits and exposing the utility to severe safety, environmental, and operational risks. Now, let's consider why these two scenarios are different. For a start, the issues with the head office are obvious and management is walking past these issues every day. However, with poorly written maintenance standards, issues are happening on-site away from management's attention. On top of this are political and commercial forces which prevent the problems from being escalated, which we will now discuss. So to understand the commercial force that prevents escalation of poor maintenance standards, we must first consider a contracting company tendering for a maintenance contract. So they read the maintenance standards for the first time and quickly realise that the standards are unpractical and that they are set up to fail. However, of course they want to make a good impression, so they won't mention this. Because the requirements are so unrealistic, the contracting company knows that it is very difficult for the utility to enforce. So they base their pricing on the minimum requirements they can get away with, which will enable them to maximise profit and remain competitive. So in other words, they have signed up to a contract they know that sets them up to fail in the long term, but because they're making good money out of it, they will keep this their little secret. To consider the political forces, let's consider what happens when a safety incident occurs. The investigator, for a start, is quite often the job manager, who is busy and wanting to wrap up the investigation as fast as possible. So they quickly identify the obvious causes, such as the competence of the individuals and their training. However, only an exhaustive investigation would determine that both competence and training were set up to fail because of poorly written maintenance standards. And as the investigator is from the utility company, they are very unlikely to admit that their own company's maintenance standards are the root cause. So in summary, we've discussed that poorly written maintenance standards result in poor work practices with high safety, operational and environmental risks with high ongoing costs. However, these risks are often overlooked because the work is carried out on-site away from management's attention and the underlying commercial and political forces which prevent escalation. If you have enjoyed watching this video, check out our next video where we share how to write effective maintenance standards.